What's good, everybody? Fred Richani, TSC. Been a while since we've done a live breaking news update when it comes to pro wrestling. A lot of times when we do breaking news updates involving pro wrestling, it's usually not a good thing, and I don't have any good news for y'all right now. Ugh. I kid you not, this is freaking crazy, okay? Straight up. Facebook reminded me of this the other day. Or actually today Facebook reminded me of this. A year ago, WWE released 24 wrestlers, multiple employees. I think the total body count was, I don't remember officially, but I think in 2020 they probably released like 100 people. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was quite a bit. But on this particular day a year ago, they released a ton of wrestlers that they did not need to release amidst record profits. So fast forward a year to the day, I repeat, a year to the day, these jerk-offs release Samoa Joe, Billie Kay, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Tucker, Kalisto, Bo Dallas, and Wesley Blake, according to WWE.com. Also, originally, I want to give a shout out to PWI Insider because they originally were the ones that reported a lot of these releases. Mike Johnson of PWIinsider.com. Shout out to him for his original report. But yeah, absolutely mind-boggling. Now look, I'm not saying as a business you should not make cuts when you see fit or whatever the case may be. What I'm saying is when you're WWE, a billion-dollar company whose stock price is finally recovering after a year, who just secured a billion-dollar deal on top of your other billion-dollar deals with Fox, with NBCUniversal, with now NBCUniversal streaming platform Peacock. You're releasing people when it's still a pandemic. And I realize a lot of people are able to get vaccinated, and that's great. But there's a lot of people, depending on where you live, that haven't been able to get that yet. On top of that, here's what really confuses me here. Here's what really confuses me. Samoa Joe has been a fantastic commentator, and he was just on WrestleMania. Billie Kay, while we're keeping it real, is not a great wrestler, is a great act. And she's got a lot of natural charisma. And she could take bumps. So why wouldn't you want to use her? Instead of hiring your generic, on-air people, no disrespect to some of the on-air people they hire. I mean, you could use Billie Kay in a variety of roles, and she could wrestle on the side. They could always use entertaining people, and she's naturally entertaining as a following. I don't get that release. Mickie James is the one who I find pretty appalling too, because Mickie James, she's a legend. She's a great wrestler. She's one of the best workers of her generation, not just women, but men too. She's great. She has vocally complained in the past about how WWE will write you off if you're a woman at age 40. Kind of like they did with Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox, I think, is in her mid-late 30s, and they wrote her off and called her a legend. So, think about that. You got Edge, who's 100 years old, who's wrestling. And I love Edge, and Edge is great. And I thought Edge was great at WrestleMania. But yet, Mickie James and other women who are 40 or around 40 or older don't get a shake. Don't get a shot to wrestle. Outside of the rare match in NXT or a Mae Young Classic or something like that. How's that fair? How's that fair? I mean, I guess Shayna Baszler's the exception because she's like in her 40s. But yeah, I don't understand. They released Tucker. Tucker's another guy who, by all accounts, very well liked. I thought actually a better promo and a much better worker than anybody ever gave him credit for. And this guy's got great size. He's been with the company for years. If you follow social media, he rarely embarrasses himself. And yet, he's released. Kalisto. We cannot overlook Kalisto. I've been to a lot of WWE shows, house shows, televised, non-televised. Let me tell you something. If there's one guy who is criminally underrated from just a crowd reaction standpoint, it has been Kalisto. This dude is so popular with the kids, so popular with families, is a good live worker, great physique. I mean, do I even got to go into the masks and why that they failed epically with this guy and any luchador they've had, not named Rey Mysterio over the last few years? I mean, They could make so much money off of this man and masks. But this is what happens when you have a company that at the top is not very diverse. And when you have a company that creatively is also not very diverse, or at the very least have somebody that understands the Latin American market, the uh, Central American markets, South American. I mean, like, do they even have a Hispanic dude on the creative team? I don't think so. But meanwhile, they still employ QAnon Drake Wirtz, the referee from NXT, who also serves as a talent recruiter. And last time I checked, they still employ Road Dogg. And hey, I hope he's better after his heart attack. But if you follow any of Road Dogg's social media, I mean, you want to talk about people that embarrass the company, that put out things that are that would be interpreted as racist. It's Road Dogg, and yet these dudes have a job, and they're in positions of power to help hire and fire people, or at least help people stay employed. And yeah, they still have jobs, but Kalisto doesn't. Billie Kay doesn't. Samoa Joe doesn't. And by the way, Samoa Joe was rumored that he was going to come back and wrestle, and I guess maybe he will now. And look, while I am absolutely positively sick of seeing 100 wrestlers on AEW Dynamite because I can barely keep up and all their million YouTube shows, I will say this. If you're a wrestling company and you don't go after Samoa Joe, assuming he still wants to wrestle, you're an idiot. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. If you could sign Christian, if you could sign Paul White, if you could sign Paul Bunyan, if you could sign this guy or that guy, you got to sign Samoa Joe. That's all I got to say. Even for commentary. This dude is an asset. You want to talk about best workers of his generation? Samoa Joe is at the top of the list. And it's a damn shame that I have no idea why they released Samoa Joe. They hired Adnan Virk, whatever the hell his name is, who thought Drew McIntyre was the Celtic Warrior. But they released Samoa Joe. Anyway, let's go down the list. Bo Dallas, I mean, look, they haven't done anything with Bo Dallas in forever. I've read reports from the Wrestling Observer newsletter that he's very much prepared for a life outside of wrestling. And I think he has a real estate business as well and a farm. So, it's unfortunate. You never want to see anybody lose their job, but it looks like he's doing okay. So God bless him. I hope he's all right. Wesley Blake, I feel really bad for Wesley Blake. And I feel really bad for I think it was Steve Cutler? Yeah, I think it's Steve Cutler was his name, the guy who also got let go from the Forgotten Sons. How is it that Jackson Riker, who made all these racist statements online, who made a public statement on his public Facebook page saying that people should watch 12 Years as a Slave to learn about slavery, effectively insulting and alienating himself from every person of color he's ever worked with. How does he still have a job when Cutler, who's a decent worker, well trained by the Monster Factory here in New Jersey, gets let go? And I realize Cutler had a party where he got COVID and could have gotten everybody in danger, but that's the same party that I believe Ricochet attended and other wrestlers attended. They weren't punished, but Cutler gets let go. Wesley Blake. Last time I checked, the dude hasn't done anything wrong. Just works really hard. Cut his teeth. NXT original. He gets let go. But bum-ass Jackson Riker, who couldn't lace their boots, who alienates a lot of people, who sucks, still has a job, at least for now. This story is developing. So, yeah, as of right now, this is all the people who are released. I'm just refreshing because, unfortunately, it seems like it's one of those days where a bunch of people are losing their jobs, and I don't really understand it. I don't understand it. This is just, I don't know. Austin Creed, aka Xavier Woods, tweeted, and with that, the day is now a bit different. Mickie James tweeted, grateful for the memories, grateful for the locker room, grateful for the fans, grateful for these little keys to my golden handcuffs. You never expect others' vision of you to be as big as your own dreams. Thank you, Vince McMahon. # always blessed and grateful. Awful. PWI Insider is saying that Chelsea Green is gone too, which is crazy to me because she's also somebody who's been in NXT for a while, works really hard, has a big social media following, great look, solid worker, well trained by the great Lance Storm. Poor girl had more debuts than I could count and just the worst breaks with injuries and plans changing. I don't know. Let's go to some of the comments here as we're waiting for more updates. John Murray says, Samoa Joe, Billie Kay, this sucks. Ladale, what's up, man? By the way, shout out to Ladale. He runs Tuck Magazine and the Tuck Sports Podcast. Check him out. You can also look him up on True Urban Culture on Instagram. He says, I'm so dejected about the Billie Kay firing. Bro, me too, man. This is... Like, I could understand, not that I want anybody to lose their jobs, especially during a pandemic, but if you're going to let go of people like Bo Dallas, it makes sense because, again, you're not doing anything with them. Wesley Blake, same thing, even though I do feel bad for them. But, again, when you just had Samoa Joe and Billie Kay at WrestleMania, when they both clearly have something to offer, even if they don't wrestle, both of them have something to offer from just a pure public relations, hosting, on-air personality standpoint. But no, let's hire this generic dude that nobody's ever heard of. No, let's hire a guy that doesn't know who the Celtic Warrior is, whose only line is, oh my goodness! I mean, I'm not hating anybody getting the bag, but just perspective. JJ Richardson, this sucks big time. They just got that NBC money. Yeah, dude, I don't get it at all. Daniel Price, they do this every year after Mania. Actually, they had it for a few years. They can't keep everyone. They're shady rich people, but why keep people they're not utilizing? I mean, they just utilized a bunch of these people, dude. And I know what you're saying, but I mean, you could afford to keep these people during a pandemic. I'll say this. While I don't like a lot of what AEW is doing creatively, while I don't like a lot of what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing, although I blame Shad Khan more than Tony Khan for that. I will say this. I think Tony Khan is definitely a better human being than Vince McMahon. And Tony Khan really did his best to keep as many people employed as possible during the pandemic. I will say, maybe signed a little too many people, a few too many people that you can't even keep up with, and they just don't have enough roster spots logistically in AEW. But I will give Tony Khan props for, trying to give people work, trying to keep people on the payroll, trying to do his best. And yes, while he is the son of a billionaire, the reality is AEW itself as a company is still very much a startup with way less revenue coming in, way less profit coming in than WWE. So for them to keep as many people as possible during a pandemic compared to WWE, that's an institution that just got another $1 billion for TV. That makes WWE look very bad. Man. Thomas Fleming says, bummer about Samoa Joe. I know he has been used as a commentator, but he has been good in whatever role. I was just hearing that they had good numbers for WrestleMania. Bad timing. I agree, dude. I totally agree. Pure luck. Samoa Joe is good in the mic and a good wrestler, dude. Change good to great. If you never saw his work in TNA in his prime or ROH, I mean, the guy, and he had great work too in WWE, but I mean, prime Samoa Joe in the mid 2000s was insane. If you want to watch some interesting wrestling, Google some of Samoa Joe's work in TNA with Kurt Angle, with AJ Styles, with Christopher Daniels. As good as any wrestling, as good of a heel, just as good of a top guy as you'll ever see in the business. There's a reason he's still highly regarded as the best Ring of Honor World Champion of all time. Guy was incredible. Joe's out of shape and gets injured too much. I don't want to judge it. Listen, man, I don't think Joe's out of shape. The guy's always staying ready. He's never had the best body as far as six-pack abs, but I mean, you look at NFL offensive linemen; those are some of the best athletes in the world, and they don't look like Mr. Olympia. That being said, I will agree with you that he has been injured a lot, but he's been a great commentator. They stumbled upon a great commentator, so why get rid of him? I don't know. Brian and JJ says there's probably more releases coming. Ugh. Vinnie Mac doesn't want to build new stars, and he wonders why WWE isn't as good as it was before. I mean, they're trying now. Finally, they're finally trying in more than a half-assed way. So I'll give them that. I mean, they half-assed it like crazy for many years. They failed upwards because there's a bunch of these streaming platforms that are losing money that need content. But yeah, they haven't done a good job of making stars at all. I mean, it took them forever to finally get Roman Reigns heel and get him right. It took them forever. I mean, really, honestly, even with Bianca, they had Bianca on the main roster for a year. And it took them months to even figure out what to do with her. I mean, thank God they figured it out. But, I mean, look at Sasha Banks. It took them all these years to realize, hey, maybe Sasha Banks should headline WrestleMania and be the top girl. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But Even honestly, even Drew McIntyre, they could have elevated Drew McIntyre when he first came back. Like they waited a couple years, they had him waste his time with Ziggler and all this crap. So even the guys that they do, Bobby Lashley, it took him until 2021 to realize maybe we should make Bobby Lashley world champion. Okay, give him credit for pushing these people, but it's a very low bar. You know what I mean? We're gonna give him a brownie just for doing something they should have done years ago. Hey, let's push black people. Let's push Escobar in NXT. I was like, okay, you should have done that years ago with these guys and girls. I don't know. I feel like they get a lot of points for things they should have done years ago. Pharaoh Kid says it just doesn't feel good every time they do it. No, it doesn't, and okay, even if you were planning on doing this, the fact that you're coming off of a very successful WrestleMania, and that you're literally doing this the year after you originally did this looks really bad. Wow, okay, WWE has come to terms with the release of Peyton Royce. Jeez. Wow. Holy crap. Okay. So they released both Iconics. Now, full disclosure, I'm not the biggest Peyton Royce fan. That being said, she's got a social media following. They've been putting her on TV recently. She's got some charisma. I don't know. Again, I don't get half these releases. This makes no sense at all. And for those saying, oh, it's about the stock price, well, as somebody that invests in the stock market regularly, I could tell you that WWE stock price has been recovering quite well and getting close to the level it was at before the pandemic. So why release all these people now? Why not at least wait? If you're going to release people, why not at least wait until, I don't know, more states have opened up, there's more work, they can go somewhere else. I'm not especially if you don't have to. That's the thing. If they were hemorrhaging money, if this was even WWF or WWE of 10 years ago, I'd be like, okay, I don't like it, but I understand it. But right now, come on, man. They literally just secured another $1 billion. They got international TV deals. I could see them after the Fox deal being sold to Disney or Fox or NBCUniversal, which probably would make more sense to go to NBCUniversal, given that's been an institution. But yeah, Brian says CM Punk's pipe bomb becoming more and more true. I agree. Why is Ronda still in the company? She's got a relationship with them. She's a huge star. Listen, man, this is the deal. When you're a big star, the rules are always different. That's the deal. Oh, John Thomas says, hopefully one day the wrestlers say enough is enough and they unionize and collectively bargain. I agree. First of all, can I say one thing too? Andrew Yang, where you at, bro? He had all this talk about how he was going to help wrestlers unionize and called the Department of Labor. And listen, the Biden administration has far more issues right now than pro wrestling. Understandably so. But I don't that I don't understand. What happened to that? I know he's running for mayor. Last time I checked, WWE runs in New York City. So if he's running for mayor of New York City, and he's not even going after WWE and all these apparently evil corporations, then what was it? Was that all for naught? Was that just for him to get all up in the videos? Yeah, I don't know. Very, very lame. But you know what? Look, I have to say this too. It's on the wrestlers as well. Yeah, it's on the wrestlers as well. Because if you're a top guy like AJ Styles, if you're a top guy like Xavier Woods, and I realize Xavier Woods has very lucrative opportunities that he's afforded outside of WWE anyway, and I realize AJ Styles has been a millionaire for a while now. But if you're a top guy and they're taking away your Twitch platforms and they're taking away a lot of your cameo money and all that jazz, while also not compensating you for it, and what I mean by that is, let's just say you're making an extra $100K on the side. If WWE's not compensating you an extra $100K or somewhat equivalent of that, you should probably stand up for yourself. You should probably try to unionize. You should probably call the Screen Actors Guild. And the fact that nobody did, other than maybe Zelina Vega, who's now released, what does that say? When tiny Zelina Vega has more guts than most of your top wrestlers, that's saying something. That's an indictment. Now, That being said, in fairness to wrestlers like, say, Sasha Banks and Roman Reigns, who appear to not really care about anything other than wrestling, which is fine. It's fine to focus on your craft. I get that too. But for the wrestlers who have a vested interest in, well, outside interests, they probably should unionize. And hell, even Sasha Banks. I mean, she's on The Mandalorian and she's in SAG, so, I mean, whatever. She's getting the bag. But, I mean, okay. For any wrestlers, which is 95% of them, who aren't Roman Reigns or Sasha Banks or somebody at that level, like, yeah, you should probably unionize. That I don't get. I never understood. It's like fighters. Like, not every, like, 97% of fighters are never going to get to the level of a Conor McGregor. 90% maybe. They're never going to get to a level of, like, John Jones, of a George St. Pierre, of Anderson Silva. So why not go for it? But, it's very individualistic. They're well within their rights to say, you know what, we just want to get our money. But at the same time, if you just focus on you and you just go about your business and just say yes sir, no sir, even though you're an independent contractor with your rights being violated technically, you're gonna be open and you're gonna be prone to being taken advantage of, and that's what's happened. I will say this, they're coming out with a new video game. They'll probably get paid very well for a new video game, and if you're comparing the very low bar of WWE wrestlers' pay compared to UFC fighters' pay, WWE wrestlers still have an opportunity to have a much higher ceiling by nature of merchandise distribution and the video game. But still, think about inflation. Think about all the money WWE's made. Have salaries gone up since WWE's gotten these billion-dollar TV deals? Last time I checked, no. And if these salaries do go up, are these contracts fully guaranteed? If you ask Luke Gallows, if you ask Carl Anderson, who thought they were going to be set for life, the answer is no. That's not the case. So, yeah, wrestlers should unionize. But if they didn't unionize, or at least reach out to SAG after the Cameo deal, if they didn't reach out to SAG after WWE got billion-dollar TV deals and didn't increase their pay across the board, if they didn't reach out to SAG when the network originally was instituted in 2014, which cut into their pay-per-view money, well, I just don't foresee it happening. It's going to take somebody with guts and somebody with guts that's willing to go against the machine. And look, I'm not necessarily blaming anybody for not going against the machine. I'm just saying you kind of have, I don't want to say you have very little room to complain if you don't unionize, but I don't know. At some point, somebody's going to have some guts. Somebody's going to have some guts. That's all I got to say. If Jorge Masvidal, who has no leverage, and Colby Covington and John Jones and all these other guys that typically don't have a lot of leverage in the UFC compared to wrestlers are willing to stand up for themselves and at least try to negotiate. At least try. The fact that none of these WWE wrestlers even try or flinch when WWE does something detrimental to them speaks volumes. That's all I gotta say. All right. Xavier Woods tweeted, "Wow, man. Wow. Okay. Okay. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com says, I've been told John Laurinaitis has been making the calls to talent and citing budget cuts as the reason for the WWE releases. Okay. For those that don't know, John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, is the former head of talent relations for WWE, who's now back to being the head of talent relations of WWE. So years after Triple H essentially got him out of that role, and he's been a road agent ever since, a producer, whatever. He's now back in that role, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. Over the years, recent years, who's been around Vince McMahon? Bruce Pritchard got promoted, or got rehired and promoted, overseeing Raw and SmackDown creative, and John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, back to being head of talent relations. What does that tell you? That tells you, kind of like what somebody brought up in the comments here, CM Punk's promo, that Vince McMahon surrounds himself with a lot of yes men who aren't going to go against him, who aren't going to make a case. Whereas a guy like Triple H, say what you want about him, I have a feeling Triple H would at least try to stand up for some of the talent. Now, that didn't really work out so well last year, but I would like to think that Triple H would say, hey, these are some of my NXT kids, maybe keep them. Johnny Ace is just going to do what he's told. And the reality is, even if it's Triple H, even if it's Johnny Ace, even if it's Paul Heyman, I mean, even if it's I don't know, Zeus, like the spirit of Zeus, of Thor, of Odin, like Vince McMahon's not going to bow down to anybody. He's going to do what he wants to do. So, all right. Daniel Price says Kevin Dunn. Yeah, Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn, of all the people that should not have a job right now, it's Kevin Dunn. What that guy has done to the TV production of pro wrestling is absolutely criminal, with all the camera cuts and the zooms and things like that. Just terrible. Watch them release Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy. I guess so. Actually, yeah, they might as well release Aleister Black. They're doing nothing with him, and the guy's obviously supporting his wife, who, by the way, he's supporting his wife, Zelina Vega, Thea Trinidad. Okay, somebody here is like, LOL, the level of Conor McGregor. I'm not saying these guys and girls in fighting and in wrestling are going to get to the level of Conor McGregor. Very few people do in terms of star power, or Ronda Rousey. But again, there's strength in numbers, and if there are fighters with very little leverage who have been willing to stand up for themselves over the course of the history of UFC, okay, I mean, Randy Couture stood up for himself, GSP stood up for himself. A lot of fighters have stood up for themselves when they had very little leverage in the first place. If they're willing to stand up for themselves, and a lot of these wrestlers aren't, I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, come on, man. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, also that being said, I don't blame any lower card guys and girls for not, necessarily going against the machine, because you do need some top guys, I mean, look at back in the day. The wrestlers were going to unionize, and then Hogan, the racist snitched to Vince, and that ruined it for everybody. All right. Let's see right here. Sasha forgot she wasn't always treated like royalty and almost left the company. I don't think she forgot anything. She's doing her own thing, man. Like, I can't blame her for that. You know what I mean? Like, and technically she did. You know what? I'll say this. Technically, Sasha Banks seems like she did stand up for herself, because she did take that leave of absence. And she was willing to leave WWE. Now, you know what I mean? And who knows what other negotiations were behind closed doors before she came back. So I got to actually correct myself there, because, she did technically leave WWE. Now, granted, that seemed to be more for mental health than anything else, but she was willing to say, you know what? I'm going home. I'm going to figure things out and go from there. And obviously it worked out for her. More people should probably do that, honestly. I mean, no story's the same, But yeah, if you're not happy mentally, financially, whatever, why not? Okay. Yeah, Hulk Hogan stopped the unionization of wrestling. Jesse Ventura tried. Yep. Okay, Renee Young tweets, I don't think we've seen someone be able to connect with the crowd like Billie Kay, and Mickie James is a Hall of Famer. They bring so much to the table. I agree. It's absolutely pathetic that you get rid of these two. God. Terrible. Terrible. Lionel Green, you may know him as Leo Rush, who was released this time last year. He says, y'all really don't give an F, do you? Yeah, 1 year ago today. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible, if you ask me. Ugh. Horrifying. Just really, really, really sad stuff. I'm checking to see if there's any more updates before we hop off here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Man. Just sad stuff overall. Just sad stuff overall. So, yeah, this is good for Samoa Joe's ring career. He could go back to Ring of Honor. I mean, I guess so. You know what I mean? I mean, if Ring of Honor wants to pay him, yeah. I mean, look, I'll say this: Ring of Honor's done a really good job of barely, if at all, releasing anybody, or not releasing anybody, I should say, during this pandemic. So props to them for that. Think about that: a Sinclair Broadcast Group-owned company is more ethical than WWE, at least when it comes to owning wrestling companies. That's crazy. Do you think Joe will join AEW? Sure, why not? The problem is, like, Tony Khan seems very in over his head with all these signings. You know what I mean? And I just think, they have so much talent. And honestly, so much lack thereof when it comes to talent, because they have a lot of green talent as well that probably shouldn't be on TV right now, if we're just being honest. So should they sign him? Yeah. Would it be the best for Joe's career? Financially, probably. Creatively, I don't think so right now. I mean, there's so many guys that are lost in the shuffle right now. If he wants to go and be a featured guy, I'd probably be, if I were him, I'd probably be a free agent. You know, maybe do a. I mean, he could do a shot in AEW as part of the Impact storyline. You know, maybe do a shot for Ring of Honor. You know, I would actually like to see him in New Japan. I feel like New Japan right now is incredibly. I mean, that would be tough because of all the travel restrictions. But if there were no travel restrictions, I'd love to see him in New Japan just because one, there's a lot of dream matches there we haven't seen. Like him and Tanahashi would be awesome. Him and Ibushi would be awesome. I mean, him and Ishii would be awesome. But you know, New Japan's another company that creatively has been very, very stagnant. But I mean, look, he's an asset anywhere. You know, you put him on AEW, just let him cut promos, let him. You know what? Hell, put him on AEW. Take Taz off commentary. Just make Taz permanently like a YouTube commentator and manager for Team Taz. Put Joe on the commentary table. Like he'll be an immediate upgrade from pretty much everybody there. So I don't think they'll do that, but I mean, again, you could have Joe in literally any role, and if you don't have a role, if you can't for whatever strange reason find a role for him to have a consistent storyline in wrestling, put him on air, and then when you're ready, bring him up as a wrestler. Why not? Kayla Braxton tweeted, "Heartbreaking day. The female locker room will not be the same without the beautiful, funny, outgoing, sweet, encouraging Billie Kay. I could go on and on about Billie Kay. We will miss you." Yeah, just awful. Just awful. Ugh, man. You know what? I'm still waiting for Jackson Riker. I'll say this: if you're a racist, if you put out racist rhetoric and tropes, you know, you should probably not have a job. So I don't think they'll release Road Dogg. I don't think they'll release Drake Wirtz, even though they should. They should at the very least release Jackson Riker because he's a terrible person. Ugh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Teal Margaret, who I believe is the real life sister of Cody Rhodes, tweeted out, "Record profits, but go off, I guess." Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just absolutely pathetic. Two Trill for Life says, "You can't say Joe will be taken for granted in AEW. He won't be taken for granted. I'm just saying he'll be lost in the shuffle creatively because they just can't keep their storyline straight. You know, one week Christian's confronting Kenny Omega, and then the next week he's confronted by Team Taz, and then the next week Kazarian's a face, and the next week Kazarian's a heel, and the next week the Young Bucks are with the Bullet Club. The next week they're not out with the Bullet Club. Then one week we're gonna have MJF versus this guy. Then it's not MJF. It's just like all over the place. Then MJF forms a stable, and then all of a sudden they're gonna do a blow off in a War Games match within the first month of the feud. Like, it's just very creatively inconsistent. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they can't right the ship. The nice thing about AEW is that Tony Khan does seem to listen to a lot of people, maybe too many people, and they're still a relatively young company, so they're not that far gone. So a lot of the mistakes they're making can very much be rectified. But then again, the same thing can be said for WWE and Impact and a lot of companies. Whether or not they actually, you know, do some quality control over time, you know, that's another story. We've seen in the past where AEW was starting to have the wheels fall off a little bit at the end of 2019, and then they got their ish together before the pandemic, and now it's kind of going back to with the wheels falling off a little bit, being like a little all over the place creatively. I'll say this with AEW though, they definitely have the most unpredictable show, for better or worse, and that makes for a more entertaining watch. You know, sometimes it's really good, other times it's really bad. It's usually it's rarely in the middle. It's usually one way or the other. So from that standpoint, it's definitely a more exciting product, unpredictable product. But look, they can. It would be a great move if they signed Samoa Joe. I would just appreciate it as just a fan, from a purely fan perspective, if they had an actual logical, consistent direction for him, because he'd be an immediate upgrade. He could teach a lot of these young cats how to work as well. I mean, a lot of these young guys could learn from just watching Samoa Joe. Like he's that good. He's still, even if he's hurt, even if he's hobbled, even if he's not wrestling as much, he's still that good where they could learn from him. But then again, I mean, AEW has Jim Ross and Jake the Snake and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard all under the same roof. So if none of these young cats are taking advice from any of these people I just mentioned, and even Chris Jericho, say you want about him as a person, the guy's still like a wrestling genius. Like if you can't learn anything from these people or learn anything from Christopher Daniels or Frankie Kazarian, I mean, or even FTR, who are great workers, like that's on you. That's a you problem. That's not a. I don't think it's a necessarily AEW problem. Although, you know, I do think at times some of the VPs are a little too self-indulgent. But yeah, there's plenty of people to learn from. Yeah, I think there's too many factions in AEW. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, look, New Japan has a lot of factions. WWE at one point had a lot of factions. I don't think the problem is factions. I think it's just more keeping up with everything and having linear storylines that are followed up on week to week and not assuming that you know, we get mad at WWE for bringing in people off of NXT without any build up. I get annoyed with the same thing with AEW when it's just like they assume you watch this YouTube show and that YouTube show and that YouTube show. It's like, yo, like a lot of us, you know, have other things going on. You know, there's people that go to school, there's people that work, there's people that have families, there's people that just have other life things going on, other interests. Maybe they get their fill of wrestling on TNT or on USA Network, you know, a couple hours a week, 3 hours, 4 hours a week. You know what I mean? Like, you can't expect everybody to watch everything. So I think WWE and AEW definitely have that problem sometimes where they just assume that you watch this show or saw this tweet or, you know, watch this YouTube video when the reality is like your TV is your main product. So make sure people that are watching your main product are in the loop. Oh, man. Let's see. Okay, Samoa Joe changed his bio. Or no, he didn't change his bio. He retweeted CM Punk, who tweeted out a GIF of a guy laying on the couch. So, interesting. Man. I don't know. I'll say this. Like, for purely selfish reasons, I'm excited to see Samoa Joe be a top guy somewhere else. But I do hate seeing him out of work. Although he won't be out of work for this long. That's for sure. That's for sure. CM Punk and Samoa Joe are making their own company. No, they're not. CM Punk is very much happily semi-retired. You know, people laughed at him about the UFC thing. And look, I mean, the UFC thing was kind of corny, but dude made like over $1 million for those 2 UFC fights. He got that video game money from UFC. He got merch money. And on top of that, he's still working for UFC Fight Pass as a commentator. So I'd say he had the last laugh. Now, could he have negotiated his hand more with WWE not returning on that horrible backstage show with that, you know, creep Ryan Satin? Yeah, he probably could have not returned on backstage. He probably could have, you know, held out, did his thing. But you know what? Look, man, he's living life on his terms. He's got a beautiful wife who's very successful and entrepreneurial in her own right, AJ Lee. You know, he's doing his thing. And he can say whatever the hell he wants. He's got FU money. That's goals, right? So CM Punk's a success. I'm sure he's fine. Man. Let's see what else. Okay, it looks like that's pretty much it right now. But yeah, okay. Somebody's asking real quick. Why didn't Bray prevent his brother from getting released? I don't know. I'm sure he stood up for his brother. But at the same time, if this came out of nowhere, you know, I'm sure, you know, Bray hasn't had time to process that. You know what I mean? I would imagine as a top guy or one of the top guys, Bray vouched for his brother. I wouldn't be surprised if he vouched for his brother to be involved in the storylines. I'm actually very surprised they never had Bo Dallas get involved with Bray Wyatt. I mean, they look alike. Why not? Bo Dallas he's not, I wouldn't say he's like a great worker or anything, but he's perfectly fine in the ring. And, you know, like, he has been entertaining when given a chance. I don't get it. Anyway, folks, I'm going to get out of here. We'll keep you guys posted on all the different releases on here. I'll be posting some updates in the comments in the community section. You can also visit our Facebook page for more updates, facebook.com/The Sports Courier. Instagram, follow me at TSC News. And on top of that, you can, of course, just subscribe to this channel, and we'll keep you posted. But, yeah, very sad stuff. If you're just joining us on the live stream, a bunch of people got released. Samoa Joe, Kalisto, Wesley Blake, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Chelsea Green. Yeah, Mickie James, absolutely appalling. Oh, by the way, Danny here on Twitter says Wesley Blake's wife Sarah Lee, who won the most recent Tough Enough, currently pregnant with her third child. So they just released Wesley Blake, who's a perfectly fine worker, who was on TV a few weeks ago, or at least a few months ago, alongside Baron Corbin. They released Wesley Blake while his wife is pregnant with her third child. So, way to go, WWE. I don't know what else to say other than way to go, WWE. Thank you for being a heartless corporation. Thank you for revealing your true colors. That's my alarm. That's telling me I got to get off, guys. But until next time, as always, enjoy the matches. Take care. Please be empathetic. Please be kind. And Vince McMahon, you can kiss my ass.